All right, going live in 3, 2, 1. Well, this is Olivia On Air, episode number 2, and we have Olivia on with us this evening or this morning or wherever you may be located throughout the world. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Doing good. As usual, I usually use one of the usual questions I ask is, how's the weather where you are?
That's a good one. The weather, it's windy. It's kind of warm. It's not too bad. Overall, pleasant.
Oh, okay. You getting any humidity where you are?
We had a lot last week, but this week is supposed to be dry, so that's nice.
Oh, okay. The where I am, we're getting hot. It gets hot during the day, and it gets just cold enough in the morning where it feels like maybe I should turn the heat on, but I don't. So, and then it gets really hot during the day again. So it's like really getting pretty extreme right now. About extreme in both ends. I mean, just enough. Just enough. So I'm thinking, what is the where am I at right now? I'm sure in a few weeks they'll
Right.
probably be just constantly having the air conditioning on all the time. But for right now, it's like back and forth. So.
Yeah. At least we don't have to go outside as much because then at that point, I feel like it was always hard to pick out an outfit, like just to see if you'd be sweating or shivering in the outfit.
Oh yeah, yeah, I bet.
It's
Yeah.
always the hard part.
So we have as I was explaining to you before we began, we have a feature on these shows now, and it's to help our audience participation. We're going to ask a question. Let me go ahead and bring this up. This is the for those watching this video, you can partake in this. You can while we're doing this live, or you can do it after if you're watching this on the recorded version. I'm going to bring this up here. Give me 1 second. We'll ask a question, and you can answer it throughout the show. And I'm just about to bring it up. Here we go. Okay, so this is on the community tab on my channel. And what question? Do you have any questions you'd like to ask our viewers?
Well, I recently started reading, so I'm just kind of curious, like how many people out there read for enjoyment on a slightly regular basis? Maybe not phrased like that, but
How many people read for enjoyment then? Would that be okay?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Actually, we might have to rephrase that a little because this will be a poll. So, how about do you like to read for enjoyment? Do you like to read?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll work better. If you see me with any typos, let me know because once I post this, I can't correct anything.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, because for the longest time I just didn't really like reading. Just because I feel like textbooks kind of made it boring, but I started reading like mystery books and it's really exciting, so
I haven't read a book in a long time. I've read 4 novels in my life. What I read, The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, uh, Lord of the Flies, and I forget who wrote Lord of the Flies, and Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick, which is the novel that's the movie Blade Runner is based on. So.
Oh, I've only read one of those. I only read Lord of the Flies for school, so
I think mine was a school project as well. So, and I kind of cheated a little. I actually got the audio version of that book, so the person was actually reading it to me. So
that's fair. That's fair. As long as it's not Cliff's Notes. Well,
no, I didn't do that. No.
I feel like that's fair too, though. In high school, if it's a really boring book.
So we got yes. Do you like to read for enjoyment? Yes. No. Do you have um, uh, any other answers that might be relevant for this that you can think of?
Maybe your thing only audiobooks or something like that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'll put yes, but only audiobooks. Capitalize the Y. Okay. Anything else?
I can't think of anything.
Okay. Yeah. I can't read and I don't care. Okay, there we go. So let me show you, do you like to read for enjoyment? Yes, no, yes, but only audiobooks. I can't read and I don't care. Okay, here we go. You ready? Does it look good for you?
Yep.
Cool. There we go. So we'll come back to that periodically. Bring it up here. All right. And let's see. How many, we got anybody standing by? A couple people standing by, leaving. Nope, nobody's leaving any comments, but we do have a couple people standing by right now, though. So, anyway, let me get that out of there. So, tell me about. So, you say you recently read a book, right? And you were telling me this before we went live.
Yes. I read 77 Clocks by Christopher Fowler. It's a murder mystery book, and it was really exciting. It's like a roller coaster ride because I had read Sherlock Holmes a few times before, and I do like Sherlock Holmes, but he uses kind of like semi archaic English, like it's kind of hard to get through sometimes, and you have to look up what words mean because they're like from like the olden days. And this one was written, I think, in maybe the late 90s or early 2000s. And there's a few more in the series, so that's always fun to look forward to. But it's about these two detectives named Bryant and May, and they go out and they basically are part of the Peculiar Crimes Unit in London, England, in the 70s, I think. And they just kind of, it talks about their adventures and everything and how they solve their crimes. It's a basic, like, crime solving murder mystery. But the characters, Bryant and May, are actually really interesting on their own as well. They each have their own, like, pretty developed personality, which is really nice. And it's kind of like, I don't know, the writer writes the suspenseful parts really, really well. It's like, I would compare it to like if you're watching a scary movie or if you're playing a scary video game, you know something's going to come just because of how the writer has phrased their words, and you just kind of can pick up on that pattern really easily, and it's still surprising every time for me personally. And so, yeah, it's just, I think it's really well written and it's really exciting to read, but it is a bit gruesome. So I wouldn't recommend it if you don't have a, a strong stomach.
Oh, interesting. Now, I want to go back for a second there. You said it was written in archaic. The language was archaic, and
Of Sherlock Holmes, yeah.
so, but it was written within the past. It was written more recently, though. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sherlock Holmes is written by, let me think. I keep forgetting his name because I want to say Sherlock Holmes, but it's Arthur Conan Doyle.
Right.
Uh, and that was, I believe, in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Archaic English is like, um, I don't know how to explain it. I might not be using it properly, but I've heard it used in this tense a few times before, where it's kind of old English, where it's some of the words and sentences are phrased a bit more complicated than they need to be phrased, if that makes any sense. So it's kind of like in period films, they phrase their words um, just complicated, more complicated than we do now.
But when was the? But Arthur Conan Doyle, did he write this one? That's what I'm curious about. Is it because you said I thought this was written more recently? Did I understand what you said there?
Oh, I'm talking about two different books. So
Okay.
previously, like in my life, I've read Sherlock Holmes books, which are written by Arthur Conan Doyle in the I think it's late 1800s. I'm not 100% sure.
Mhm.
But this time, this is a newer book that I read, the 77 Clocks book. And that was written by Christopher Fowler, and he wrote it, I believe, in the early 2000s. So
Okay. Okay, but he wrote, but I mean, he used the older style, is what you're saying. Is that right?
no, I'm saying that Arthur Conan Doyle used the older style, and so it was harder to read. But
Oh,
that's what made this book a little bit easier to read and
oh,
kind of more up to date.
oh,
Sorry if
okay.
I phrased that really. I don't know if I phrased that like confusingly for everyone. I hope not.
When I read one of the books I read was The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. He wrote that in the 1800s, and that book was incredibly hard to read because it was like you said, the I would have to say I the phrasing, it was just like you said, it was just I guess it would be that version of archaic English, so to speak. I kept on I had to read each sentence like a couple of times because I was like trying to figure out what he was saying because it was just such an older style of English. it was also written obviously in a different country, and there's references that to things that are more. If I had grown up in that period, I would probably understand it a lot better, especially the way the words, the sentences were phrased and everything. So it was very hard. It's almost like I needed a translator sometimes just to translate the book. But
Right.
I did
It's like
get
a
through it.
riddle.
Yeah, I did get through it, but it was very challenging. The other books were more straightforward because it was more modern. They were more modern. Well, actually, no, I take that back. Well, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is actually older than that. So, but that was actually an easier read for me. So I don't know why. But I guess maybe because it was written in the United States. I think, right? I think so. Um,
Right.
and Mary
Yeah.
Shelley wrote that book, and I think it was written by. I think there was other people that actually wrote it with her. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. I could be wrong. So, but but anyway, I do remember that the time machine was very very difficult. So, but getting back to what you were saying there, so aside from the parts you said that people may be turned off from this, would you actually recommend it overall though?
Yeah, yeah. I think it was if you like a suspenseful read, if you like to I mean I would recommend reading it in the daytime, not at night because it gets a little scary. Um but if you like that kind of thing, then definitely a mystery book. It's a good one.
No, no, you were talking about how I think you said this before we started the show about how people getting into reading. How did you phrase that? Do you remember what you said before? How you wanted to talk about how people how'd you say? I'm trying to remember. Do you remember what you said exactly about
I'm
that?
not sure. I don't remember.
Okay.
Um
You're good.
did I mean
You're
I
good.
said that I don't know a lot of people myself who read or
Right.
like who are around my age who read. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah, that's what it was. And you talked about, yeah, in your age range. And is that so I mean, I personally I'm not a big reader, so the books I've read they've been a long time since I've read those. So I wouldn't even be able to quote anything from them really. I would just remember basic elements from them. It's been such a long time. Reading them again would be basically like starting fresh. So um the is I mean, as far as reading, you said you didn't like to read, but you do? Is that what you said before?
Yeah, for a while I didn't like reading. I feel like in high school, I think what it was is um, in in my school they assigned us so many dystopian novels where like the world is all depressing and just sad and kind of the opposite of utopian, not pleasant to think
Right.
about or imagine at all. And so they assigned us like two of those a year, and it didn't sound like a lot, but when you like have to read it so often, you get kind of it's just like it doesn't really you don't need any more emotional sadness fuel in that turbulent time of your life when you're a teenager. And I feel like that many dystopian novels is just it was just too much. And I mean, like, I understand one or two, like 1984. You know that book?
Yes. Did you read it?
Yeah, we had to read it.
I have
I
not read it though, but
vaguely remember it. I don't really remember much of it, but I understand books like that because they're classics. But some of them were newer, and it just didn't really make any sense to me why we were reading sad books. So I stopped liking reading as much because I feel like reading I mean, for me personally, it's I'm more interested in an adventure or like a mystery or something, not something that would make me sad. So,
well, of course there's the for a while they you had the young adult. This is not really well. They were based on not books. You had the young adult dystopian movies like the Hunger Games. Um, those were of course it's not really like I said. Those were based on books. So I'm talking about the movies though. So those were pretty popular for a while. They kind of
yeah, yeah.
there was
I
also
go
Diver
ahead.
yeah, there was
Sorry.
also Divergence and, what was the other one? The Maze Runners, or is that what it was called?
I
And
think so.
there was another one that didn't really pick up called The Fifth Wave, I think. It was kind of a dystopian one, so, um, but, yeah, that was a popular trend for a while, and they kind of faded away, so
Yeah, and I was in middle school and high school right when they were really popular. So I think it probably like I guess a lot of kids my age really liked them. I just didn't. They weren't for me. Um, Yeah, neither was Twilight, to come to think of it. I didn't really like a lot of those novels, not sure why.
Was Twilight a dystopian movie? I never watched or read that. So
I
is that
didn't think so. It was I think that was like the vampires versus werewolves versus like humans one, I guess.
okay? Okay. A lot of people. I'm not saying I can't say anything for it against it. It's just a lot of people I watch on YouTube that review movies say they hate that movie series for some reason. I'm not sure why. Even though it's popular, I don't know why. They just say they hate it. So I can't say whether it's good or bad. I don't say anything bad about a movie unless I go watch it. So um,
Right. I haven't seen it either.
but the other ones I will say I kind of like the other ones. They kind of got some of them got kind of flaky towards the end, but the Hunger Games was pretty decent. It took me a while to get through them because I think there's yeah four of them altogether, but I don't think I'd read the books. Not that even if I had time I probably wouldn't read the books. So there was one book in particular you talked about in high school. You read several. You read like a couple of different dystopian novels. What name? Can you remember the names? Because there's one I read. I had to read it, and I didn't really read it all the way through. And I can't. It sounds like maybe if you can remember some of the ones you did, maybe I had to read it as well. Do you remember some of the names you had?
I'm not gonna lie, I honestly can't remember a lot of the names. Some of them I may or may not have cheated on. Do not tell anyone, but I may or may not have cheated and read the Cliff's Notes instead of reading the actual book because I was sick of reading them. Um, but yeah, I don't really remember most of them. I think I only remember 1984, and then there was one about it was like a newer one about um, this girl in a town where like they weren't allowed to leave. It was that kind of thing where it was like masquerading as a utopian society, but really it was like dystopian. And I guess the government was just trying to cover it up. I'm not sure.
The I think I remember the one I read. It was called I think it's called Brave New World.
I've not read that one. I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, and then like you, I didn't actually read it. I just kind of so I all I did was like whenever the teacher would go through and just we'd go through like a recap, I just go, okay, yeah, yeah, and I just go, okay, yeah, and just remember what she said and hopefully I got it right later on. I passed the class, so I guess I did enough. So
Yeah, it's kind of it's I feel like if you have the basic points of a book, it's not the hardest to pretend like you know what you're talking about.
I will say the one of the books I did read it was kind of funny. The writer, it was Lord of the Flies. You did see, you read that. I don't know if there's I read the book, parts of it, and then I went back and I did part of it with the audio version. So it was like a half and half on that one. And I was reading along one time while I was actually listening to the audio version, and in the audio version, I think the audio version was slightly newer than the book version. And he comes, one of the characters, it might have been Piggy or Ralph or someone says, "Yeah, are we civilized? Or are we going to act like a bunch of wild?" And they said N words, like for black people, N words. And I was like, oh my goodness, that was pretty strong. And
Yeah, that's weird.
in the book, whatever it was, he changed which one was newer. He changed it to Indians. I'm like, okay, so you changed one great group of people for another group of people, so you're just being racist in another way. So
Didn't really make it any better, but
yeah, I guess in his mind he probably thought it was better in some way. I don't know.
I'm not sure when that was written. Yeah, no, I don't remember all the parts. I just remember the whole like pig's head on a stick, I think, or was it a boar? I'm not sure.
Yeah, the pig.
That's the main part that I remember.
Uh, and I remember pretty well. I the what was it, the kids crashing the plane, and then the pilots. He died, and so there basically it was just like I can't think of the right word. It was just to show how society breakdown of society, and I'm probably getting parts of this wrong, so I better not get too much into that. But the and I do remember they got saved at the end, but there was a movie. There were two movies that came out for that. I watched the first one many years ago, which came out I think in the 1960s. It's black and white. And then they came out with a newer one that came out I think in the 90s. So if you were to ever watch one of them, a lot of people say this. It's better to watch the 1960s version than the newer one because it's more truer to the book. So I never watched the newer one. I wasn't really that interested in it, but it was just kind of interesting that and I think I don't even know if you can find how, because it's not really a popular book aside from like schoolwork. I don't think a lot of people go out of their way to read it, and the movie itself is I don't think it's very popular either. But so it's probably hard to find. But and then of course the other ones I read, uh, Blade Runner. That's pretty. I like that movie a lot, and the Time Machine. The 1960 version of the Time Machine is one of my favorite movies from when I was a kid. I always thought that, even though I look at it now, it's kind of cheesy in some ways. It looks kind of outdated, but with the effects. But at the time it came out, it was actually some of the effects were actually brand new. And so it's actually when you look at it from that perspective, it's actually pretty cool. So, uh,
Right, right. What's Time Machine about?
the book is basically a breakdown of the upper and lower class. And H.G. Wells was trying to show that there was a division. The division was so drastic between the two groups of people that from the year 1900 to the year 820,000, it's really a great long distance. Basically, the time traveler goes, he jumps from the year 1900 to 8,200 something. It's really, really far in the future. And what happens is the lower class and the upper class have divided into two separate races of people, and the Morlock, which are the lower class, and the Eloi, which are the upper class. And what he tried to show that what would happen is because the upper class didn't work as much, they would become less. They would become very frail, and to the point where you couldn't even tell which gender they were. They were just the gender. You look at them, they look the same regardless of which gender they were, because they were just so carefree and didn't work at all. And the Morlock became very aggressive and savage-like, and they basically maintained the world beneath. And the separation became it became kind of a reversal after such a long period of time, that the Morlocks, even though they were uh, they descended from the working class, they were still the ones that maintained the world, but they were the ones that actually ruled the world in the future. So it kind of had a role reversal, and the Eloi were just basically like almost like what's the word I'm looking for, like cattle. They didn't react to anything, so they were just kind of almost mindless, they're oblivious to their surroundings. Like when you see a bunch of cattle in the field, they don't react to anything, that kind of a thing. So, and it broke down to the point where they were actually the Morlock were actually consuming the Eloi for food, or killing them for food. So
Ooh, that's interesting.
yeah, the movie um changes changes that aspect. You have the Morlock and the Eloi, but instead it's George Powell, who's the director. He changed the idea of it being between classes of people, and rather he was extremely anti-war. He was the movie came out in 1960, and he lived during World War II, so he hated war. So his movie is an anti-war movie. So at the very beginning, the time traveler is professing his hatred of war, and how humanity is going to we just keep on building things, and we just keep on building more and more technology that just keeps on killing more and more people. And so when he gets into the future, the division is still there between the Morlock and the Eloi, but it's because of all the wars that took place during the movie. And the Morlock were basically the ones that hid underground whenever the air raid sirens were blasting, and the Eloi were the ones that stayed above. And it still kind of evolved just like the book did, where they were basically the Morlock were running the machines down below and running the city, the world, and the Eloi were just like cattle above. And so they became more just like cannibalistic. They were still eating the Eloi. So um, the one thing I've watched the movie, like I said, it's one of my favorite movies from when I was a kid. The one thing I always found contradictory, and I hope you don't mind all these spoilers, because I don't know if you would ever watch it. But when the time traveler goes into the future, he has this major, like I said, in the past he's so anti-war, but in the future he teaches the Eloi how to fight. And so I've always wondered if that was supposed to be if that was like the writers weren't thinking, because why would the time traveler who's so anti-war teach the Eloi to fight and kill? It seems like a major
Right.
contradiction. And I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe they just wanted to have a good action movie, because at the end, it's kind of like watching an episode of the old Star Trek. It kind of looks like that. where he's fighting the Morlock because they're wearing the rubber masks and everything, but like the costumes, that is. And or they just forgot that that the time traveler was an anti-war person, and they just put it in there without thinking. I don't know. One person made a review, and he said that the reason the time traveler taught the Eloi to fight was because of the necessity to fight against tyranny or fascism. That's the way he put it. So that was his explanation. I don't know. That's maybe it's kind of weak. I still think it's just like they forgot that he was an anti-war. He was supposed to be anti-war throughout the entire movie, and they just wanted a big fight scene at the end. So
Yeah, that might be it. I mean, I guess it could be open to interpretation, and just like any which way is the best way to, think of it any way you want, I guess.
And at the very not only does he teach them to fight and kill them, but basically all the Morlock within the like within the radius that they're living in, whichever they all the Morlock are basically dead by the end of the movie.
Oh, jeez.
So he basically what he does is he destroys, he sets fire to the underground area, and basically it all caves in and kills all the Morlock. So they're pretty much, except for one that like fades away kind of when he travels through time. But they show the rapid deterioration of his body as it rots away. So, but
that's a bit contradictory.
The other thing I have a problem with, I don't know if you've ever seen this. I've seen this with other science fiction movies, is what was going on within the immediate area of the story, they act like that's what's going on throughout the entire world. And
Right.
it's like, well, we don't know what was going on throughout the rest of the world. Maybe the rest of the world, we were living in peace. We don't know. We were only seeing like this small little area, like maybe 100-mile radius or so, maybe 200 miles at the most. So maybe the Morlock and the Eloi were doing this in this area. Maybe on the other side of the world, they were living in peace and harmony, or maybe there was a different group of people that evolved that are completely different. We have no idea. But the writers of the movie don't want you to think that. They just want you to think that this is what the whole world is like, which is very, closed-minded. So
Right. I mean, most of the time, I just for movies like that, I just kind of assume this is what the writers kind of want it to be like for the whole world. Just assume that it's like that. But I do get where you're coming from. I really appreciate it when like they have two characters talk about another part of the world that's maybe doing something different, or at least giving an explanation of what's going on in other places that we can't see. So yeah, I do definitely appreciate when that happens.
the other one, if I can give you another example, is have you ever seen the Planet of the Apes movies from the 1960s and 70s?
I have not. Monkeys kind of make me uncomfortable because I think I've talked about this on the first episode. The whole I don't know, they look a little too much like humans for comfort.
I would honestly recommend that the very first one from 1968 is I would have to say is one of my three favorite science fiction movies of all time. So the 1968 Planet of the Apes is very good. Now the makeup is a little dated looking because they've done better over time. You can tell they're people in masks, but at the time it came out, the makeup was really well. It really new, and it really that's one of the things that made people want to see the movie, was how well they did the makeup at the time. Like I said, if you see the newer stuff, it looks a lot better, obviously. So, but the getting back to what I was going to lead up to, in the second movie, Planet of the Apes, Charlton Heston is the main star of the first movie. He makes a cameo in the second movie, and he said he would only be in the second movie if his character got killed off. So what they did at the very end of the movie was he killed off not only did he kill himself off, he destroyed the entire planet by detonating a nuclear bomb, a doomsday weapon that would destroy the entire planet. So at the very end of the second movie, Earth is destroyed, and it goes
Well,
back
that covers everything.
it goes back to the idea of the writers were acting like that Charlton Heston's character was like, well, this planet is full of apes and they're so evil, but we only saw a little area of the planet. We have no idea what the rest of the planet is like. Maybe the rest of the
What if
planets
other places, what if like other places are not, they don't have any kind of problem like that, and they just get blown up?
they're just living in peace and harmony, and he just killed everybody because this small little section of the planet. So
Yeah, I guess in that situation, you just gotta hope that the whole planet was covered with apes and having the same problem.
Oh, and the other thing is he actually made friends with some of the apes. So he actually, well, the second movie they travel through time, so that's how they're able to keep the story going. But I'm sorry, the third movie that was the second movie. In the he had made friends with some of the apes. So as far as he knew, he had killed off his friends at the same time. So
Oh, geez.
yeah, the second movie is like I said, the first movie is I said one of the best movies. The second movie is not one of the best movies at all. It's kind of a weird movie. It gets into mind powers and all these other weird things that the first movie never even touched on. So, um,
I don't really like when sequels do that, when they kind of stray so far from the first movie that it's like this could be, if they just edited it differently, this could be a different movie just entirely. You know what I'm saying?
mhm. Yeah, yeah, and the craze during this period was from what I understand, I was obviously not this was before my time, so but I'm the from what I've read and seen, when they didn't even want to make sequels at the time were unheard of, and if you did a sequel, they it was actually considered to be bad. Like nowadays obviously they do it all the time, but back then it was actually considered to be bad. You didn't want to do a sequel, so the idea that they actually came up with the idea to do a sequel was actually unheard of, or mostly unheard of, I guess. And so yeah, they just came back and did a completely different story that was not really the same. And
Yeah.
then they came out with there were actually five movies altogether. The fifth one was the third and fourth one get a little bit better. They have a role reversal thing that what happens in the first movie is basically you have Charlton Heston who has to live in a world of apes, and he gets to see what it's like to be a lower animal, so to speak, a lower life form, where we're living amongst a group of creatures that are the higher life form on the planet. So I thought that was done very well, and it was partially written by Rod Serling, who's the guy that did the Twilight Show during the 1950s and 60s. So in the third movie, they do a role reversal because the apes go back in time. Now the apes get to live in a world where the humans are the dominant ones. So it takes place in modern day. So the apes are. I don't know if I said it, but the first one takes place in the future, like 2,000 years in the future. So the two apes that go back into the past, they get to see what it's like from his perspective. They get to live in a world where human beings are the dominant creature of the planet, and the world is fascinated by two talking apes. And then the fourth movie gets into war and racism and slavery, which is done pretty well. It's not great, but it's not bad. And the fifth one is it gets really bad by the fifth one. I don't even like the fifth one. So that's where after that they realized it was getting so bad they stopped making them. So
Yeah, that sounds interesting. That sounds like the role reversal one sounded interesting. Like I feel like that's how it is now, I guess, because people are the dominant creature, technology wise.
right.
So
Yeah, and I would not recommend. There's I saw it was the what's it Burton, what's his name, that did the 2001 version of Planet of the Apes. Tim Burton, I can't remember his name. I would not recommend that one. It's kind of weird. It's kind of, I don't know, it's just not that good. The newer
okay,
one, the newer ones were okay. I thought they were good. I didn't think they were great, but they're okay. Some people said that they're supposed to be prequels to the originals. I'm not sure if that's true. I think it's a remake. It's but I mean you could say, I mean, because there's some contradictions to what happens in them. So, but I mean maybe they are prequels. I'm not sure. It's not a big deal, but you could look at them as basically a prequel to the original movies if you want. But obviously the effects in that one are all CGI. And they're what's his name? Andy Serkis plays the main ape in that one. Just like if you're familiar, yeah, you're familiar with the with Andy Serkis when he what he did in what was Lord of the Rings.
I believe so.
Okay, Andy Serkis played Gollum. You're familiar with Gollum?
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, I didn't match the name with the face.
Okay, yeah, Andy Serkis plays the main ape in this one, and he does a pretty decent job in that one, as just like he did with Gollum in the Lord of the Rings. So
I feel like he's really good at acting in general. I mean, a lot of actors are, but I feel like he's like really good at his job.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, if you like that, it's like I said, the newer ones are good. They're just not as good as the original, the very first one. So
Right.
if you don't mind the dated looking makeup, and the first one, I would definitely highly recommend. But the acting is very very good. So, and
Okay.
I won't give you any.
I'll give it a chance. I'll give scary monkeys a chance.
Well, there's some friendly ones in there too.
Okay.
There's some other things you wanted to talk about. You said you passed your finals.
Yes. Lucky me. I passed my finals. I think I got 2 B's and 2 A's, so that's pretty good. And one of the B's was a group project final. So I think that I should get a pass for that B, just because group projects are never go quite as planned. And as a final, not sure why the teacher would make me do that, but she did.
A group really for a final. I when I was teaching, I gave out finals. The first year I taught, I was a little nervous, so I gave out. I let the students do an open book exam for the final exam, which made it a lot easier, obviously. Um, and then the next year I came back and I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I had a few students who were like, they thought, oh, this will be easy because I was the head of the department I was in, so I taught like about 5 different classes, and so the ones that came back for the other classes, they were like, oh, they thought it was going to be real simple because everything was going to be open book. But the next year they came back and they realized, oh, I made them. They had to actually study this time for the exams.
Yeah. I mean, one of my teachers this semester for environmental policy, he doesn't do multiple choice. He had us write like essay style answers. And so he had us use our notes just because he was like, if you took organized notes this semester, then you can use those and formulate your answers in a good way. Because it was an extensive amount of notes. I mean, the lectures were like really long, and so you did have to be organized. And I feel like that's one way of like, um, kind of, I don't know what the word is, like seeing who was actually paying attention in class and who wasn't, because a lot of them, the questions, you couldn't just look it up and find an essay answer for it. So I feel like in that situation, open note it's actually kind of a benefit, just because, especially if it's an essay, you can't really expect students to remember every single aspect. But if they're paying attention, they should remember, when they learned it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. The one thing when it came to essays, though, after a while, I got tired of doing the essays because I honestly I got tired of reading them, so I did more multiple choice towards the end because it was easier just to grade them and get them done with. So
Yeah, that makes sense. That's fair.
yeah, the one thing I noticed was when it came to things like that, if I did have anything where they could use notes of any kind, is that some of the students didn't do anything. They just grab the other students' notes and use them instead,
Oh,
and the answers would be identical. Like if it was a question where they had to answer it word for word, it would be the exact same thing that the other person wrote word for word as well.
oh
So
my God. So then neither of them get points, right? Because I feel like
right.
that's how my school would do it.
Yeah, yeah, because if it was obvious that if they wrote the exact same answer, I would say that both of them would fail that because it's like I don't know who did it, I don't know whose notes it is, so I have to fail them both. Exactly,
Right.
that's what I did. I do
That's
remember,
incentive enough to not do that.
yeah, though I do remember one time I actually kind of mocked. I didn't name any names, but I mocked my students. There was the two students had done that where they wrote exactly the same answer, but what happened was they wrote like there were 3 lines that they wrote. They all wrote the 3 lines, or both of them wrote the 3 lines, but the first student forgot to put the first line of the answer. So what happened is his answer was like was like cut into the middle of the second line. So he missed the first line altogether, and it was like you could tell he just didn't realize that the first student had put a line on top that explained like the first part of the sentence. So the first part of the sentence on his was missing. So all you got was it came in the middle, like his explanation, his answer was like came in the middle of a sentence, but it was word for word from that point to the very end, the exact same as the other students. So
That's
it was like he didn't even read the whole thing. He just copied the words. He wasn't even looking at what he wrote. So I actually wrote it on the board to get a good laugh out of the students. So
that's funny. I feel like if you're gonna cheat, at least try a little bit, try to make it believable.
we got a couple of people, a lot of people saying hello. So hello everybody. Got one from Skinny Chungus 451. Hi, I've been watching you since 2017. Thank you. So, and then we can go back since let's see, we've been in 39 minutes. been doing the show. So let's go ahead and bring our question back up, see where we're at right now. So, do you like to read for enjoyment? 131 votes so far.
Nice.
82% say yes. So, only 5% say no. Yes, but only audiobooks 4%. That would be me. I can't read 6%. And if you go into the comments, I I think the joke was missed by this person. If you can't read, then how can you press how how TF can you press if you can't read? You know, it's that's the joke. So and 3% I don't care. So no, I will
Good
say this
answer. I did not expect that, honestly.
I will say this is not scientific by any stretch. Then this is mostly my viewers, but YouTube does promote these questions. I don't know if you know this. They promote these questions mostly on mobile devices. So what happens is like people will watch a video, and then this question will pop up at random at the end. So it had nothing to do with my videos. Just it just pops up, and then people.
Oh, that's cool.
So I have no idea. I assume that most of the people are answering are my viewers, but they could be just random people from anywhere. So, but yeah, I'm really surprised. I didn't think yes would be that high. That's really cool. The
Yeah, me neither.
We'll come back to that. We can come back to that later. So,
I
all right.
definitely feel like reading is one of the easiest forms of like entertainment because there's so many books and libraries are free. So, and now you can, I think what my mom does, she loves reading, is she goes on the library website and then she like puts books on hold so she can just pick up her books in a drive-through window instead of having to go in. For like the COVID thing, they started doing that, and I think all libraries do that. So it makes it a lot easier even then to get books. So
I told you about like you know obviously I like audiobooks. I've gotten so lazy when it comes to reading things that I use Google Translate now just so I don't have to read things if it's too long. I'll put the
that's
text in the
fair.
Google Translate and have the automated voice just read it to me. So
That's totally fair. I mean, reading is definitely not for everyone. Like I have dyscalculia, which is like numbers switch around in my eyes, I guess, in my brain. I don't know. So numbers are really hard, but I totally understand dyslexia. Like reading would be really, really hard if you had dyslexia. So I think it's totally fair. Like no judgment for people who don't read or anything. That it's totally fair.
the what was gonna the oh I slipped my mind. I forgot what I was gonna say. Sorry. So
It's okay.
the trying to I was hoping it would just pop back in, but um as far as reading that's one of the things I did want to touch on. There was a TV show that came out in the 90s called Sliders. You ever hear about that?
No.
Sliders, it was four people who jump from through a wormhole from different Earths, and each Earth was slightly different than our Earth. And it was when the show first came out, it was pretty. I thought it was done really, really well. In fact, every once in a while, I think it came out in '95, and it lasted for like 5 seasons. And the first two seasons were really good. The third season was mostly good, but then towards the end, it got kind of weak. And by the fourth and fifth season, it was just pretty much garbage. So I don't really care for it. It was done by different people by then too. But what I'm leading up to is there's the official website, the official fan website, which has been around since the show was out. So it's a really old website. It's called earthprime.com. And the reason it's called Earth Prime is because they were in the TV show, they were always trying to find the original Earth because they got lost and they were trapped. They were always jumping between Earths, so to speak.
Ooh, that's spooky and cool.
It was done really well. And the it on earthprime.com, somebody had written a follow-up for the show that would reunite all the main characters into a new story. So what I did was I thought it was interesting, so I used Google Translate again to just read it to me. But the story was actually pretty. That's in a sense I kind of read that one. I don't know how long that was, but it was actually pretty good. But towards the end it got kind of weird, so I stopped reading it. So I never finished it. But it was something else I enjoyed reading, so to speak. So um,
Right.
the interesting about the show was by the last season, basically all the main characters, there were four main characters, all of them but one had basically been killed off. So there's only one of them left. And the one that was left was actually the one character that had nothing to do with how their ability to travel through time. I'm not travel through time. I'm sorry, travel to different Earths. His character was a tag along. Like basically, he got dragged in accidentally. So
Oh, okay.
the other three of the main characters were the ones that were basically, or two of them in particular, were responsible for how to travel through time because they were like more scientifically minded. The other was like kind of like the girlfriend of the one, kind of, not really, but they had like a kind of a small relationship at the beginning that they broke up as they went along. But the they were the ones that were responsible for doing this, and they all got basically killed off. And by the end, it's just the one character that got dragged along. You're like, well, wait a minute, he's not even the main character. He wasn't even the main character when the show began. So, and so
Right.
essentially, he was a main character, but essentially, you're left with none of the main characters at the very end. And so it was just the show just deteriorated really bad. So, but I still enjoy the show itself. I actually watched like the first three seasons about a couple of years ago. And I was like, yeah, I was like, I couldn't remember. I was like, wow, yeah, this is really good. I was like, for me anyway. I mean, not everyone else may like it, but it's the writers said that when they first came out with it, the original writers, that is, because it changed over time, is they were trying to show like a satire of Earth, of society. It was supposed to be a satire. So every time they went to a different Earth, you were supposed to see a different way society could have evolved in a satirical way. That's the way they and that's why it was done. That's why I liked it. So
Yeah, that sounds like it would be really interesting.
yeah, the original pilot was they get trapped on an Earth where the Russians had taken over during the 1950s. So, and things like,
Ooh.
and each world was different, and it was done. And then towards the end, it got, like I said, it got bad. But that was the first few seasons. That was the first couple of seasons were like that. So, if you want to watch a show, I'd recommend it. I definitely would recommend it. So,
Right. I feel like a lot of shows are like that, where the first few seasons are really good and then it just takes a dive down or plateaus and doesn't really get any better.
yeah, I agree. What shows do you like? I'm just kind of curious.
Honestly, I'm not really interested in TV shows right now. Um, I think I watched The Witcher, and I probably shouldn't have because I didn't know anything about it. But I kind of went in blind. I 100% went in blind because I don't have any siblings, and I've never had like gaming consoles around my house. The closest thing I've gotten to like a gaming console was like a leapfrog when I was a kid. I don't know if you know what those are. They're like little educational games for kids.
Is it
Um,
is it a video game?
the leapfrogs are like educational learning games for children. But that's the
Okay.
closest thing I had to a gaming console or anything. Um, and so I didn't really know what The Witcher was, but the show is really good. I have to say the show was really well executed, and I feel like it explained things enough for me to have a basic understanding of what was going on. I think I should read about it more before I watch it again, though.
Do you watch the entire series or season, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think there was only one season when I watched it. I don't know if there's two now. I know they're making a second one, or maybe they made it. But yeah, I watched the first one, and yeah, it made enough sense for me to watch it to the end. So,
Hmm. I bought I did actually I didn't buy it. What I bought was a video card for my computer when I was building one of my computers, and when I got the video card, it allowed me to download the Witcher 3 video game for free. So
ooh,
I installed it, but I never played it. So I
um,
never had a chance to go through it. All I know is I brought this character up and he walked around that looked like medieval times, and that was about all I saw, and I never finished it. So I've not watched
right.
the series though. So, but you say so you basically you would recommend it, is that right?
Yeah, there's a lot of lore involved. I know that I'm missing a lot of the background information, and I'm sure if you played the game or read the books, because I think the game was based off of books written.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so I think if you read the books and slash or played the games, you would have a much deeper connection to the show. But and then of course, if I'm completely incorrect and the show was executed poorly, I wouldn't really know because I don't have the background information. But I think it was pretty good.
Hmm, okay. Well, maybe to be honest, I knew they were coming out with one. I didn't even know it had been released yet, so I wasn't even paying attention. So, but that's cool. Maybe I'll check that out. Any other shows you like?
Of course, I like a lot of comedy shows. I like Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I think that's my favorite comedy show. It's really, I think I've talked about it before. Maybe
I don't know. I
it's
don't think
really
so.
ridiculous. It's it's definitely outrageous. And then another show that's kind of like that, where it's just ridiculous humor, is Check It Out with Dr. Steve Brule.
Hmm.
And I feel like I've talked about this before, but I'm not 100% sure. Um, it's a show. John C. Riley stars in that show. He acts with Will Ferrell a lot
Okay.
in like Talladega Nights and Step Brothers. They were both in
Mhm.
those movies. And that show is really funny and odd, and it's on HBO, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't watch too many new shows. I think the newest one I was watching Better Call Saul, and that's been put on hold for a little bit. So, um,
Oh, yeah. I think those are. I think Always Sunny started in the 2000, I don't want to say anything wrong. Maybe in the around 2010, perhaps, maybe. And I think Check It Out with Dr. Steve Brule also was around that time.
okay, I'll check. I could check both those out. And what you said are those? You said HBO? Is that what you said?
Uh, for the Dr. Steve Brule one, it's on HBO. I think. Um, oh, what was I talking about? I completely lost my train of thought. Oh, Always Sunny. I think Always Sunny is on Hulu. I think.
Oh, Hulu. Okay. Oh, that's yeah, interesting. You bring up Hulu. I hadn't gone to Hulu in a long time, and it's a fully paid service at this point, isn't it? You can only watch if you pay. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I have like a student package with Spotify, so they
Okay.
teamed up, which is nice.
Because this is going to sound funny, I guess, but the last time I went on to Hulu before that, it was free. So I was like,
Really?
I went on there and I was like, oh my goodness, I had to pay now. I was like, oh, forget that. So I didn't. I still had an account, but it was like, yeah, but it was just, just like a personal account when I'd watch before. It would save my settings and things, but nothing paid. I was like, oh my goodness, everything there was. It was like there was no way to watch anything for free. So I was like, I'll forget.
Dang. They didn't even grandfather people in. I feel
No,
like that they should do that.
that's where I watched. When the TV show Lost was on, I was addicted to that show. I hate to say that, but I was, and I'd watch it on there or on ABC.com. So they would watch it on both back and forth, and that was for free. And that's how long ago it was. I watched it. I guess it was probably about Lost was the last time that was on was 2010. So yeah, we're looking like over 11 years ago. So, uh,
Right.
but yeah, I do remember that towards the end when I stopped watching, they had started implementing some charges. Like if you wanted to pay, you could get some better movies. But like I said, when I went back, it was like 100%. You had to have a paid subscription. I was like, oh yeah, like I said before, no thanks. I was like,
Yeah, it's like Netflix now.
yeah, yeah, and I've even heard some people say, and I don't know how true this is, that some of the people at YouTube want to make YouTube like Netflix, like strictly just the entertainment shows and things like that. I don't know if that's true, and they don't like the fact that they have shows like ours, like little talk shows. They don't like that kind of stuff. They would rather,
Really?
yeah,
That's they have some nerve.
yeah, especially since it's
If
called YouTube.
yeah, if it yeah, yeah, exactly. Based on, I mean, in the start it was all about people making videos for free, and now they want to monetize everything. That's
Hmm.
ridiculous.
There's a. Have you ever seen the oldest video on YouTube?
I think, is it at the zoo? Is it like a guy at the zoo? I don't
Yeah.
think I've watched it, but I saw like a little screenshot of it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to bring it up just in case it's copyrighted, but yeah, that's right. There was a video I thought this was kind of interesting that was able to prove, and I couldn't figure out how they would prove this, but they did a pretty good job. It's on YouTube. They said that that's actually not the first video. It is the oldest video, but it's not the first video. And I was like, how would they possibly be able to prove that? And what they did was they used like one of those old archive websites, and they were able to find links that show that there were actually some test videos that were uploaded prior to that one that were taken down. And
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
and but the videos that were uploaded were now no longer exist. But you can actually see the links for those videos, which proves that there were actually videos prior to that one. So technically speaking, it's not the first one, but it is the oldest one. So
Right, right. I mean, yeah, I would imagine that whoever made the first one would have probably deleted it. It was so long ago.
yeah, yeah. So I do got a question. Some of these are in different languages. Sorry. I habla español. No, I do not habla español. Sorry. Uh, Another person says almost 500,000 subs. He's just commenting that my this one channel that we're on right now is growing. It's started growing really quickly within the past couple of weeks. I think it's just it's just a surge. It'll go back down again. In fact, it's going back down slowly, but it is growing. So thanks for that one. Another person asking if I'm from the USA. Yes, I'm from Virginia, and so answer that question. No questions for you. I'm sorry to say at this point.
It's okay.
Um, so was there what other services do you watch any other services?
I'm lucky enough to have a best friend who has parents who are well off, let's just say. So I pay for Hulu, and she has HBO Max, Disney Plus, and Netflix. So I feel lucky that I'm covered with all those. But yeah, it's actually almost too much. Kind of hard to choose sometimes.
It, does it get boring? I'm just curious. When basically, is there too much to watch? I mean, is there just way too much on there?
Yeah, sometimes it's overwhelmed by choice, and I'm just like, I'm giving up. I'm just gonna go and do something else. I'm just gonna go and read or something.
The
Yeah, no.
I think my dad has one of I think he has Netflix or something. He talks about once in a while. I can't remember. He has one or two or maybe a few different services. The uh there was also what's called Roku. I'm gonna,
Yeah, my parents have that. I don't like it on a personal level, but it fulfills their needs, so they like it. They think it's fun. My dad likes watching fishing, so so he watches that when it's like raining and he can't go out. So
the yeah, I don't watch I don't have any of those services. I'm just addicted to watching stuff on YouTube all the time. So the and I have found that I shouldn't say this, but I have found some places where you can download movies for free. So
yeah, that's the smart way to go. That is the smart way to go. I feel like at this point, I mean, for a lot of these subscription services, it's almost highway robbery. It's just like, okay, not to be rude to subscription services, but I feel like, first of all, Netflix, I feel like it's definitely quantity over quality. A lot of those shows I would never watch them. A lot of the shows and movies are just like, I don't think I would ever want to watch them even if I had nothing else to do. Um, but they have a few good things, and I feel like if you like reality TV, I think they have a lot of stuff like baking championships and stuff like that. I feel like HBO is kind of the opposite. They don't have a whole lot of stuff, but the quality of their movies and shows is a lot better. So I really appreciate that. Um, I think that if you were, debating between one, I would go with HBO Max or like Hulu, because Hulu has a lot of reality TV that's really good. They have like all the Real Housewives, which guilty pleasure of mine. I like the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and watching that with my friends. They have like some good movies in rotation. I think they have Shrek, which is, I mean, priority of mine personally. Um, they have House Hunters, and they have like adult animation, a lot of that. And I think right now they have Napoleon Dynamite.
oh
I'm just kind of reading these off.
oh okay okay. I'm
Yeah,
not
they have all the Austin Powers, all the Lord of the Ring. Well, some of the Lord of the Rings, I think. So I think that those are the best ones to go with.
the I'm not really too much into the what's it reality TV shows too much. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not really for or against them, but I did watch one. I don't know if I talked about this before. It was called Pinks. Uh, the it came out. I think it was like this way, at least 15 years ago. The basically it was these drag racers would come on, and they would race they'd come up with a car for, and they would have to race, and whoever lost the race would lose their car to the person who won the race.
Ooh, that's exciting.
And it was kind of cool. It was kind of interesting. And it was called pinks because what basically they were racing for what they called pink slips. And apparently in California back during the 60s, that's what they would say. Like if you owned your car, instead of saying you had a title, they said the pink slip would be your proof of ownership of the car. So you're racing for the pink slips.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it was fun. It was fun to watch because the people would argue back and forth, and it wasn't just one guy. It was like a group of guys on each side that would build the car, and they would race. And it was really funny to watch how like somebody would come into the show like with a car that they'd spent like maybe 30, 40, maybe even $50,000 on, and they'd lose it. And you're like, why would you do that?
Yeah, that just seems like, I mean, I guess if you win, you get a whole other car.
Right.
But if you lose, you have nothing. So you can't even drive home.
One of the things the people would do, there were some smarter people, they would understand that, so they'd take some old clunker and like soup it up just so they, like get an old car that no one drives anymore and then soup that up and race that instead, so just in case they lost, they weren't really losing something too valuable. So
Right. That makes a lot more sense.
I do want to show you this before we go too far. This is called, I don't know if you ever heard of this, and it's Google keeps this a secret, and they won't show this if you do a search. It's called the Lumen database. And if you type in a name of a movie or a TV show that you want to watch, it'll tell you where you can find the links on the internet.
Ooh.
And the what this is was it was created by I think one or two lawyers, and it was actually designed to protect people who had uploaded copyrighted material legally. They had done it with permission. It was designed so that you could protect those people. And what it does is it's to show that these people had permission to actually upload those videos, so they wouldn't get a DMCA takedown notice. And but what it does though, it does show where you can find all the illegal ones as well. And you can type in a movie, it'll show you like several dozen websites where you can watch the movie or TV show for free. So it's kind of funny. And like I said, Google hides this. In fact, one time I know they hide it because I was looking up a TV show in their video section on the search. And at the very bottom, it says sometimes they'll say show the search with the results that are left out, or hidden results or something. So I clicked it, and this came up on the hidden results, and I was like, oh wow,
Oh,
this is pretty cool. And I was like, I checked it out. I was like, wow, it's all legit and everything. The website's, it's there's nothing bad about it, but it does show you where you can find the free movies and stuff.
well, that's, it's a good resource and it serves its purpose, I guess.
Uh,
So,
So let me say, since we got this, so I'm bringing it up. Let me go ahead and okay, we're gonna bring up our question. See where we're at right now. So we're up to 200 and was that 203? Yeah, 203 votes so far, and pretty much the same. So it hasn't really changed too much. 80% yes. I'm not gonna go through all the other ones, but we do have another comment. Let me see what they say here. Whoops, only one showing up. I have to flip this around. Okay. He says, I mean, I read when arguing with idiots online. I have memories of every discussion with points to induce.
that counts as reading, I guess.
So we'll keep on doing this. Next time we do a show, we'll come back to this and we'll see what the results are. Usually within a week, it depends. The questions get up to anywhere from 3,000 to maybe up to 6,000 votes. So,
That's cool.
and and by then we'll get a better idea. Well, sometimes, which is really funny, we'll post a question, and when we come back, like right now it says 80% yes and 6% no. Sometimes I'll do a complete reversal within a week, and it'll be the exact opposite. So, we're only at the initial stages right here. So that something may change. Most of the time it does stay the same. But once in a while, we get this weird reversal, and I go, "Whoa, wait a minute, that wasn't like that last time." So,
Right. Okay. That's cool.
all right. So, did you did you want to hang around for a little bit? Did you want to wrap everything up, or how did you? Because we're at an hour in right now. I wasn't sure what you wanted to do.
We can wrap it up. I think next time it would be fun to talk about reality TV, because now I'm just realizing that's piquing my interest. I feel like it's changed a lot in the past past couple years, and I think I watched a video recently, a YouTube video that was about how reality TV was back in the early days, where like Jersey Shore was really popular. And it's just interesting to talk about how much it's changed, because I don't really watch recent reality TV. I like to watch The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills from like the first couple seasons, because I think it's more interesting. Personally, I don't know what changed, but maybe I'll look into that and see what I notice has changed. I don't know if that'll be interesting.
Oh no, I'm sure. You have to tell me, when did that show come out? Because I've never watched it. I'm just curious.
I'm not sure if the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, because I don't know if you know this, but the Real Housewives as a brand is like everywhere. There's the Real Housewives of New York City, the Real Housewives of like Miami, of Orange County, like there's a lot of places where there's Real Housewives. And something else about it is that it's never scripted, which is really interesting because I feel like that adds a an element of shock to the show. Sometimes it gets really intense. Like I feel like other reality shows are kind of, they get really dramatic, but it's not so shocking because it's not as real and you can kind of tell. I think I've gone off on a tangent. I don't remember what I was originally talking about.
Oh, you're
Or
talking.
what was the question that you asked? You asked, I'm
Well,
so
when did the show come out? That's
oh,
what.
I'm sorry. It was in the Beverly Hills one was in like 2010, 2011.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. So it's over 10 years old then. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that now that you say that it's a brand of sorts, that there's multiple. I may have heard of it, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I can't say with absolute certainty. But yeah, we can.
Right.
Any other? I'm just curious. Any other reality shows that you're?
Um, I don't love reality TV. Like that's kind of the Real Housewives is kind of like the only one that really keeps my interest. But I know my friends like The Circle, which is like this new dating show where they never get to see each other, and like maybe some of them are catfishes and some of them aren't, but nobody knows who's who, and it's kind of like well, I'm not sure what it is, but it's a reality show, and it's interesting.
Okay. That one sounds familiar. Did we talk about that before? I remember hearing someone talk about that recently.
I don't think I've ever talked about that before on this show. I'm not sure.
Okay, that's not we can yeah, I will we can talk about that. Also, Zupa Z, I guess how you pronounce it, or Zubaz, says, "Why do you have so many Firefoxes? OMG!" Oh, what do you? Let me bring this up again. When you're looking at the bottom of my screen, you can see that's that's basically I don't use tabs on my computer. I hate tabs. So what I do is each window has its own little window at the bottom, so I can click on it immediately. So anyone wondering why you're seeing so many at there, it's because I just don't use tabs. That's all.
That makes sense. I'm like the opposite. I have a bajillion tabs and like three different entire screens open.
So let's see. Yeah, well, next time we'll be on. Yeah, we can discuss that. And thanks everyone for watching. And if anything else you want to add before we wrap everything up,
Thank you guys. Have a good night or day or afternoon, I guess.
cool. And we'll see you next time.